Today on Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery, Hawks get a huge win last night in the first round of the play-in tournament. Now get ready for Friday. And Clayton Kershaw, if you want a little microcosm into the why the Dodgers maybe aren't as successful as what they should be, I'm going to tell you about what happened yesterday with Clayton Kershaw in his game. It's Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked on Sports Atlanta.
This is Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery, part of Locked on Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Welcome into episode 10 of Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery. We thank you so much for being a part of the show. We want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just Google, in YouTube as well, Locked on Sports Atlanta, and you will find this there. You can check us out on all of your favorite podcast platforms. And of course, we want you to give us a review, see what you think about the show, give us your thoughts about it. Check us out on Twitter as well at Locked on Sports ATL. And of course, I am at JMCH316. Well, today on the show, we're going to talk about last night in the victory for the Atlanta Hawks as they blew out the Charlotte Hornets. Don't the Hornets feel like that they are the ultimate just lose in the first round of a play-in game team, right? And that's sort of like what their franchise just sort of resembles that of, yeah, we got to a play-in and we lost, and that's all the better that we are. So I don't know if that was the most complete game that the Atlanta Hawks have played all season, but I know it's really close. And I think the thing that impressed me the most, and this is also, I guess, maybe some sort of frustration level with the Hawks this year, is last night they turned up the defensive intensity in that game, and they really took it to the Hornets. Hornets are a pretty good scoring team. They're a pretty good perimeter team. They get a lot of things going offensively, but the Hawks really shut them down. And I know they gave up 103 points, but that game was really a blowout, and it just kind of, it was what it was, especially in that third quarter where the Hawks came out with a 42 spot and took it right to them. But that defensive intensity, and I think that's the thing that we've been waiting for, and that's the thing that if the Hawks are going to move along through the NBA playoffs, is that they have to have that same kind of defensive intensity night in, night out. Now, this has been one of the bugaboos about the Hawks, is just the fact that whether it's the coach or the players or whatever coming out after game, well, we didn't have the effort tonight. We didn't have the want to. We didn't have the will. We didn't have this. We didn't have that. Mentally, we weren't there, this, that, and the other. Okay, and we heard that so many nights from this Hawks team when their defense was really, really bad. Last night, though, I thought they did a great job overall. Clint Capella was fantastic. I mean, what can you say about Capella? That they got some early matchups with him where he had some real mismatches offensively, and Trae did such a good job of feeding it to him and getting him involved early, and then he was a monster on the rebounding end, 17 rebounds. You see what a difference he makes. When he's got it cooking, when he's got things going, when he's into the game, in the flow of the game, you see how he can be that low post defender, how he can be that guy that cleans up the glass. Now, we've been talking about the idea of John Collins not being available. Of course, didn't play last night. Most likely, almost guaranteed, that he won't be part of the game tomorrow night up in Cleveland. And then probably doubtful about whether or not that he is going to play against the Miami Heat. My personal opinion is I think we've seen the last of John Collins for this year. I don't think we're going to see John Collins again in the playoff series. I don't think he's going to play against Miami. And I do think that the Hawks are going to go up and they're going to beat Cleveland, who, by the way, was 3-7 in their last 10 regular season games. Of course, they lost the other night to Brooklyn. Allen may or may not be back out there, but the Hawks certainly, if they match the intensity that they had last night, they'll go up there and beat Cleveland, who is definitely struggling right now. Heck, Charlotte was more hot coming into the playoffs here than what the Cavaliers are with all of it. But it was a great win last night, and when you factor in how well their defense played and the fact that Trae Young didn't shoot the ball well in the first half of that game last night, he hit a shot early on in the game, and you thought he'd get some things cooking, and then he missed his next 9 shots in a row in the first half and started out 1 for 9. Then in the third quarter, he really got it cooking and really got it cranked up offensively out there. And Yeah, I just thought when you looked at all of the starters and Bogey, 6 guys that were in double figures last night, when you look, it wasn't the matter of volume of scoring that they got from different guys, although Hunter was great last night. And it's kind of funny because DeAndre Hunter was a guy that in the very beginning of that game, and he finished with 22 points and 7 boards in that game. In the beginning last night, he missed a couple of open jumpers, little mid-range jumpers. And I tweeted out the idea of, man, you got to hit those things, man. When you're open in the NBA, and you're in this postseason time of the year, you have to hit those open jumpers. And he didn't. Then he comes back and he hits that 3, and it's like, okay, then he got some things going out there, and he was terrific offensively. So they got a lot of different things. Bogey hit a couple of big shots. Herter, while it wasn't volume scoring, when he makes threes, it seems like he makes big threes for this team. It feels like that he makes some big shots for this team. And we talked about the idea of the John Collins factor, that this team has figured out how to play without John Collins. They know their rotations. They know their role. They know what they have to do. I'm not telling you again that it's not a benefit to have John Collins, but they have figured some things out without him. They have gotten into a rhythm and a rotation of what to do on the court when he is not there. And I think they very much can beat both the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I think they beat the Miami Heat without John Collins. Where you get into, the next rounds, whether it's, Brooklyn, or especially if it's like Milwaukee, then you've got to reevaluate, and that's where you'd like to have John Collins back on the court with you. But we've talked about that. They have figured some things out. They've been able offensively to get the ball moving, and I thought you saw that on display last night. And if you can get that perimeter game going for the Atlanta Hawks, while you're feeding Capella and you're getting him in the rhythm, in the flow of the game. Because it does feel like when he gets flowing a little bit offensively, and especially early in the game, it just brings up his intensity on defense, rebounding the basketball. I mean, just all facets of his game that are really, that really kind of complement everything else that the Hawks want to do. So it was a terrific win last night. I think the other thing you saw too was that while it was a little bit of a later arriving crowd, when the Hawks fans get things going, they get that building cranked up and ready to go. They get that thing at a different intensity level when it comes to be playoff time. And everybody just felt like, the stars were out last night. Jay-Z was in Brooklyn the night before, and he was down here in Atlanta, and Quavo, and why Nelly was wearing Charlotte Hornets gear, I have no idea. When did they become cool? Like, they hadn't been cool since Grandmama and Larry Johnson, right? But, just the stars were out. Chris Tucker, who's at Hawks games, the stars were out. You could feel the environment. You could feel that this was a big game, and the Hawks treated it like it. And they played themselves about as complete a game as they have all year. I still think the win against the Phoenix Suns at home on MLK Day is the best win of the year and the most complete game that they played, especially given the level of the competition. But if you think about, the Hawks were 5 of 9 in the first half, shooting the ball from 3, and first quarter. They were 5 of 9 in the first quarter, shooting the ball from 3. If you factor in that first half, they sort of sputtered toward the end of the first half, and Trae was 1 for 9 from the field, and yet they went into halftime with an 8-point lead. And I think that was big, that it may not be a matter of Trae has to score 40 points for them to win, but if they don't keep up the same defensive intensity and they don't keep the same ball movement, then yeah, he does have to score 40. I mean, but if you can play that kind of defense night in, night out, and I think that's the biggest issue that the Hawks have, right? If there's going to be a downfall for the Atlanta Hawks in this playoff run, it's going to be what their defensive intensity really is. It's going to be whether or not that they can slow down some of the better scoring teams when they get matched up with them. Can they keep that same intensity? And then when other teams step up their defense and start to slow down the Hawks half-court game, can the Hawks, match them offensively? I mean, if you can play with that same defensive intensity, the Hawks can beat just about anybody. But it's been so few and far between when we've seen that kind of defense from the Atlanta Hawks. So, yeah, on a night like last night, Trae doesn't need to score 40. The game didn't dictate that he needed to score that kind of points. But where that's been an issue is just because they don't play enough defense. They don't give enough effort on that side of the ball. And, they obviously out-rebounded Charlotte last night. I mean, there were just so many good things about this. So thought it was a complete game for the Hawks, as good a win as they've had in quite a while, maybe the second best win that they've had all season long. And now they'll get ready for the Cleveland Cavaliers up in Cleveland coming up on Friday with a chance to go in advance and play the Miami Heat from there. All right, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about this, because I want to talk about the situation last night that Bridges had, where when he was ejected from the game and what he did and all this kind of crazy stuff along with it. It's Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.